a food business is really hard. It's harder than it really should be. It's harder than you, I'm sure, have imagined. I'm guessing by now you have Googled how to start a food business and you're trying to figure out your licenses and regulations, and this can really slow people down, if not stop them in their tracks altogether. So today in this video, we're going to talk about your licenses and regulations and exactly which ones you need depending on your product. My name is Sari Kimbell. I am the creator of Food Business Success, and I am a food industry consultant who helps my clients and food businesses just like you start their dreams of owning and running a successful, profitable food business. So let's jump into licenses and regulations. So first of all, you need to know that it's going to be determined by your food type, for one, and also where you're selling to. So remember, if you want to check out one of my other videos, I did talk about the various business types. So it's good to know that first. If you're going to do cottage food, if you want to do direct to consumer through farmers markets or online, e-commerce, or if you're just going to do wholesale. So first of all, know your product type. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch the one that I did on that. And then based on your product is the type of license under that business type that you're going to need. Okay, so let's jump in. So first of all, is your product what's called potentially hazardous or not potentially hazardous? So scary words, but basically not potentially hazardous are shelf-stable foods that have very low risk of getting us sick, right? Versus potentially hazardous foods that need to be refrigerated. Oftentimes they contain meat or dairy, and things like, for instance, a refrigerated salsa. So one that is not hot water bath to help and acidified to make it shelf stable. So a lot of times I have clients that fall into the refrigerated salsa category. So that is considered potentially hazardous because it does need to be refrigerated. Some products are easier than others. Doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue whichever product you are doing, but just know, depending on the type of product you are doing, that there may be some additional hoops and things to jump through. No big deal, we got this. Okay, so as I mentioned in that product type video, you can, in many states, you can just get a wholesale license and still sell direct to consumer under that license if your food is not potentially hazardous. So a wholesale license is granted by your state. So you want to go to their website, to the state's health department website, basically. So you want to look up food manufacturing or food licenses. Again, we're looking at a wholesale license. So your state agency is enforcing our federal department, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. So they're enforcing those rules around food manufacturing. So they may vary a little bit from state to state, but generally speaking, they're enforcing the federal rules. So first thing you're going to do is find the application, and you are going to fill it out first of all as a manufacturer. So you are the food manufacturer. So I live in Colorado, and so I'm going to give you the step-by-step of what you need to do in Colorado. Just know that it may vary state to state. However, again, because they're enforcing the FDA, it should be pretty similar. So I would love to know what kind of food product you are making down in the comments. So if you could let me know, and if you're going to sell wholesale or direct to consumer or do both. All right, so jumping into wholesale. So you're registering as a manufacturer, and then you are going to need to show that you are making your food out of a commercial kitchen. So this is a requirement. You cannot make it out of your home if you want to sell to your product as a wholesaler. So this means that you are going to sell it to somebody who's then going to resell it to the public, right? So a coffee shop, a gift store, a restaurant, a grocery store. Okay, so you have to find a commercial kitchen. So what you want to look for, generally most people don't have the money to go out and buy or rent their own commercial kitchen. So you want to look for a commissary kitchen. So these are commercial kitchen owners who rent out time to food manufacturers to use their kitchen. So you are going to find the kitchen that you want, and I have some great tools and links for that. Go and get my checklist down below. Sign up to get that checklist, and that'll help you get on your way to finding that commissary kitchen. So if you're gonna find your commissary kitchen, you want to be sure that kitchen meets your needs, and that, what I mean by that as far as your license is concerned, is if you need refrigeration, they need to be able to provide you with adequate refrigeration. You'll probably have to pay for it. Same would go for dry storage or places to store your product afterwards, after it's made. So you want to be sure that the equipment and the space is adequate for what you are making. So then they are gonna sign a commissary agreement. So this needs to get turned in with your wholesale application. Now, depending on your product type, you may need to get some testing done. The other thing that you're going to need in order to get the kitchen, you need to have insurance, and to get the kitchen, then you need the commissary agreement. So I recommend a company called Flip, FLIP.com, and they specialize in food product insurance. So check that out, or you could also look into your personal, whatever insurance company you use right now. So you get the insurance in order to get the kitchen, in order to get the commissary agreement, which goes with your wholesale packet. Okay, so depending on your product type, you might need to get additional testing. So it's something called a process authority, and it's for acidified or foods or juices or seafood. You do have to get some additional testing for that. So that if you do have an acidified product, a juice or seafood, you will need to turn in that paperwork with your license. If you don't have one of those, then you get to skip that part of the application. So that's really everything that's going to go you're going to turn into the state, along with your check, of course. But you are also going to be indicating that you have a food safety plan in place. And your food safety plan, again, comes from the FDA, and it does vary. The requirements do vary on what you need to have, and potentially some specialized training based on your product type. So make sure that you do have a food safety plan in place, because when you get inspected, you need to show that you have that. And then you are also certifying on your license, your wholesale license, that you have registered with the FDA as a manufacturer. It's free to do this, but it's the way that the government can track your product, and if you needed to do a recall, they can find you and find your product if someone gets sick. So you do want to be sure that you register with the FDA. Now, I want to just say here, so we went through this as a manufacturer, so you're the person making the food. The other type of license that you do need to get if you are storing any product at home or at a different facility other than the kitchen that you put down as your commissary kitchen, which is pretty typical for people to store their product at home once it's finished, if it's shelf stable. You want to also get a wholesale license as a warehouse, and you also want to register with the FDA as a warehouse. So that will mean another application and filing fee with your state, but it is important that you have both of those, otherwise your product could be quarantined and embargoed, so don't let that happen. So do go ahead and fill out those 2 licenses if you're going to be storing product off-site. Okay, so lastly, if you are selling direct to consumer, so you want to do farmers markets or you want to do online sales or events or trade shows, like I mentioned, many products are covered under your state's wholesale license as kind of a caveat. So I do have a lot of clients who think that they have to get a county license through their county health department, and they just don't need to do that. So hopefully that tip will save you a little bit of money if your product is not potentially hazardous. So you can sell direct to the consumer under your wholesale license if the product is not potentially hazardous. If it is, so some of the product types that I mentioned would be like refrigerated salsas, anything with like butter or dairy, so things that are not already baked in, so like a buttercream frosting or cream cheese frosting. That would be considered potentially hazardous, or if it has meat or cheese, you get the idea. So if you have one of those products and you want to sell at a farmer's market, you do need to get your retail food establishment license through your county. It may be called something slightly different where you live, but go to your county's health department website and look for the type of license that you need to be able to sell retail food. Now, there's going to be a lot of that license that that application that you don't have to fill out because you're not a brick and mortar operation. So for instance, you will still need a commissary kitchen, and you're going to have to get a commissary agreement, a different one, signed by the kitchen to submit with this application to the county. A lot of all the fixtures and the flooring and the appliances and everything will already be covered by that kitchen that you're renting from. So your actual license is probably going to be pretty thick when you download that application, but a lot of it won't pertain to you. But it is a little bit more involved with the county, and I can say, at least in Colorado, it's more expensive than the state wholesale license. So please only get that license if you absolutely need to based on your product type. Don't go and get it just because you think you need it. Make sure that you do so that you don't waste that money. Okay, so I guess that covers everything. I will just say if you have a meat product, the other agency is going to be the USDA that you will need to get some oversight from. So that's kind of a whole other category of food, and I'd be happy to do a future video on that if there's some interest. But please, I know this was kind of a long video, but I hope it really helped you. Let me know what kind of license you are pursuing, and I'd love to know what kind of food product you are making. It's fun for me to learn about all the different foods out there and what people are passionate about. Also check out the checklist that I have down below. It'll get sent directly to your inbox, and you can start checking things off as you work through starting your food business. Please like this video, subscribe to Food Business Success, and I'd love to see you over on our website. We have some great courses. We have a Business Foundations 1 and a Business Foundations 2, and in that you get the checklist, you get videos. You are also going to get a full resources page with all the links that I talk about in these videos, and making your life so much easier. All you have to do is click on those links to keep things moving along and keep your business going. So I would love to help make your food business real.